What's your best example of he had it coming? One morning, I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts on my way to work for some coffee. It had already been a not so great morning, so I wasn't in the best mood. The guy a couple people ahead of me got a large iced coffee, which is 32 ounces of Dunkin' Donuts, and he ended up being parked next to me in the parking lot. So I'm getting in my car and happen to glance over and notice that he's in his car, but his giant coffee is on the roof of his car. So I waved at him and pointed to his roof. He looked at me, and for whatever reason, his reaction was to flip me off. Don't know if he thought I was making some kind of rude gesture or I was just a weirdo or what, but I got to watch him pull off his parking space. His coffee stayed put while he backed out, but as soon as he braked to shift gears, that thing just dumped all down his front windshield. It was honestly one of the most gratifying moments of my life. I wonder if it dawned on him later why you were pointing. Was driving home slowly during the aftermath of a major ice storm. Dallas FW doesn't have salt trucks or plows, so there was a thick layer of ice on all the highways, which are mostly elevated, so they take ages to thaw if the temp stays low. Guy in a sports car blows past me and a bunch of other people just trying to stay on the road. He is changing lanes really fast and speeding up and generally being a dong on a dangerous road. Couple miles later, dude's car is spun out, still upright, and stuck in an icy ditch. He was fine, standing next to the, also fine, car spitting mad, so I'm glad he wasn't hurt, but man, did he deserve to end up in a ditch for driving like that. The kids in my neighborhood, including me, like to toss snowballs at passing cars. One day a guy in a purple pickup truck drove by, and we lit him up with 4 or 5 little snowballs. About 2 minutes later, the same truck comes back up the road, revving the engine loud. He zooms by, and his arm comes out the window holding a snowball about the size of a soccer ball. Somehow he nailed the neighbor kid right in the chest with that snowball. Kid crumpled to the snow from the impact. We heard him laughing his butt off as he drove away. Never saw the purple truck again. Don't throw snowballs at cars. It's more dangerous than it seems. For the drivers, I still feel like a tool when I remember, even though I was only 11 or so. A few years ago I was out a pub with some friends for my birthday. A few of them are sitting outside and my best friend coughed. This apparently infuriated a girl sitting nearby and had her boyfriend just start beating the heck of my best friend. Female, by the way, and her boyfriend. My best friend is a little scrapper so she can hold her own in a fight if she needs to, but the guy is the one throwing the majority of the punches. Police obviously got called, and the guy'll exit before they arrive. Police took statements from my friends and start trying to find the guy in order to arrest him, but even after a few weeks they still hadn't found him. Best friend gets a call from the police soon after to say that they had arrested the guy who had beaten up her and her boyfriend. Turns out they hadn't been able to find him because while he was running away from the pub that night he'd tried to jump a high fence, fallen and hit his head, resulting in a 6-week coma. Best part is that after being in a hospital for 6 weeks he got arrested. Even better, head trauma probably ensured he remembered very little about that night. Dude probably had no idea why he was being arrested. Me, sir, your brake pads are worn down and your rim is worn. There is also a crack in your head tube. Customer, I just need the puncture fixed. Me, okay, sure, it's not safe to ride though. Customer, it's been fine for years. I proceed to fix puncture. Customer rides away and not even 5 meters from the door the rim collapses under the pressure and he goes over the handlebars. It's been fine for years though, right? Why you would ever chance something like that on a bike is beyond me. Whoa. This kid I go to school with. Met him my freshman year and could tell right away he was a huge prick. He would constantly brag about all the drugs he did and he would call girls fat and stupid right to their faces. He even hocked a lodgy on one of my good friends who tried to get into his fraternity's party. This kid is also 6'3", 220, so unless you're that big there's nothing you can really do. Well, just last week he called some girl fat and when she got up in his face he knocked her out and literally body slammed her friend coming to her aid. The girls went to the police and told them everything. When they went to his house to arrest him there was a bong in plain view, so through reasonable cause they searched his room. They found a ton of Xanax, coke, and pot, so not only is he going to jail for felony assault but also felony drug charges with intent to sell. Lesson to be learned: karma's a bee. Who glad he got what he deserved. People like that need to have consequences. I used to rent my sister's house. She moved out with her boyfriend, now husband, and my brother and I rented the house from her. We were in our early 20s and boys, the place was never going to be immaculate, but we certainly didn't trash it. My sister has somewhat unreasonable cleanliness standards, however. She inspects the place one day while we're at work and flips out. Kicks us out 2 days before Christmas. Next tenants absolutely destroyed her house. Tore up floorboards, spray painted walls, destroyed it. We were messy but never would have done that. One of my former bosses. He was a hotel manager for a corporate company, worked off salary and never had to clock in. Dude was dumb as rocks. If you were new and had a question, he'd literally only say look at the manuals. Never, ever anything else. He was present maybe 2 hours of his entire week. He never came in, somehow never got caught after 10 years working there. Welp, dude got canned 3 days after I quit. It all caught up to him eventually. Sounds like it was worth it though. 10 years getting paid for doing absolutely nothing seems like a pretty good deal. I came back to a restaurant one day a week I used to be head chef at after I left the industry. They were short staffed and willing to pay me an absurd hourly rate. First day back, the new head chef, who didn't know I had worked there before, literally screamed at me and told me, "You, bossy, see like you are why I treat women like crap." The restaurant owner happened to be dining at the bar when this happened. He was promptly fired. I hope he's miserable. Haha. Back when I was washing dishes at age 16, this one waiter would just throw plates and silverware into the bus tub I used for soaking, particularly caked on messy food. The crap would splash all over me every time he threw it in there. Eventually I just shot him with the industrial dishwashing hose and he got sent home because he couldn't wait tables soaking wet. Not me, but a friend of Minutes did this. During the fall his neighborhood would put bags of leaves out on the curb for a pickup. These punk kids would always drive over the bags making a big mess in the street. So one day he takes a stack of cinder blocks and hides them in the bags. He said he could fit 8 blocks in each bag, then fill up the rest of the bag with leaves. Kids drive by, aim for the bags, boom, big damage to their cars. He said they stopped that silly behavior. My first year college roommate cheated on each of the 3 girlfriends he had that year. I bet my house that he continued to do this all through college and beyond after I stopped living with him. Just last week I found out from a mutual acquaintance that he had discovered his fiancée had been cheating on him about a month before their wedding. You had that coming, you dong. He clearly didn't, as that's why she went elsewhere, semicolon. My friend, I'll call him Zeke for convenience, and I will go to this old dock from time to time, just to hang out and talk because the area was beautiful and there's an old building where an event site used to be. So we just dig through the massive lost and found or spray paint some hip cool art, yo. Memes mostly. Well, one time Zeke brought a friend who was on Snapchat or something on Zek's phone the whole time yelling about some stupid breakup, like screaming. He got aggressive because we told him to chill. Well, Zeke wanted his phone back eventually, but the friend refused to give it, cause that friend was a prick. The friend proceeded to drop then catch his phone over the 30 feet deep water. I grabbed the phone and calmly said how that was stupid. The friend whipped out his own phone, but he preferred Zeke's. I'm still not sure, and said watch this. He dropped the phone, missed the catch, and it sunk into the pure brown water, descending quicker than the kid could open his mouth to scream. This would kill me because I'm deathly afraid to laugh at others getting what's coming to them, for fear of it happening to me. I came from a pretty large school that was very competitive about academics. I finished 51 out of 650, and I was very happy with that. The valedictorian, who I barely knew, said to me the week of graduation that she didn't know how she didn't have more competition. High school is so easy. Then said, like, take you for example, you're pretty smart but you set yourself back in life by not trying to be valedictorian. Like, you couldn't get into an Ivy League with your rank. And my valedictorian title got me in everywhere. On top of that, my best friend was getting paid to write essays for people and I knew Ms. Pompous valedictorian bought many from her. I mostly forgot about this girl and moved on with my life. I graduated college, moved back to our hometown and got a good paying job. The first weekend back I ran into her. She works as a cashier at Target. You bet I went through her line to say hi. I sincerely wish her all the success in the world now. But it was also good to see reality found her. My friend was dating a guy, and she told me he had a 500 HP Mustang. I went for a ride with him. He later totaled that one, doing 40 miles per hour, in the rain, with traction control off, with drag radials, and got a newer one with 700 HP. I turned down a ride in it, and talked my buddy out of it. The dude had skills, but nothing resembling judgment, i.e., passing traffic at 140 miles per hour with 3 passengers. As of Friday, that's now his 700 HP coffin. Story involving me. In the mid-2000s, my sister passed away from cancer. The entire school knew about it because she had been able to attend the school for a few weeks. She had to stop shortly after, but everyone knew we were siblings. Anyways, I had this bully that tormented me fairly often, mostly stupid kid stuff. The day after, he told me in the lunch line, "I'm glad your sister died." That was the first, and only, time I punched someone first. I broke his nose and got a 10-day vacation courtesy of zero tolerance. That's horrible, even for a kid. When my friends and I dumped bottles of glue into this other kid's snow boots in 6th grade because earlier that day he nailed me in the face with an ice ball and laughed at me while my face bled. His boots were completely ruined and he couldn't go outside for a while. I don't remember the teachers doing anything about it because we didn't have security cameras at the time and the kid was a little crap, so they probably didn't care. With all that awful behavior going round, I'm just glad your friends were there to help you. Today at lunch I kept telling my preschool student to stop looking under the table because he was going to hit his head. Halfway through my 3rd repetition he banged his head on the table. He stopped. One of my friend co-worker's kids was being super crappy to the animals. We train horses and take people for trail rides as well as have a crap load of farm animals. He was chasing the older horses and the chickens with a stick and they were all kinda just putting up with it. Now my horse and the milk cow were chilling together in the corner and he tried to hit the cow with a stick and oh boy, neither of them were having any of that. My horse swung his head like the little crap and showed him his teeth. He would never actually bite or touch him, but he knows how to look scary as all get out when he wants. And the cow butted the kid into the dirt while my horse had him distracted. Guess what? He has a lot more respect for the animals now, and has stopped trying to hit them with sticks. For those of you wondering why we didn't make him stop, we figured he'd hear it better from a 1,000-pound animal. He learned an important life lesson then and there. If you will frick with something larger than you, be it construction vehicles, the bouncer or a horse, you better be sure you control the situation. I and my parents were on the highway and we were at a part that didn't have passing lanes. I think it might have been a national park or something, and this guy kept on tailgating us. He almost nudged our car as well, and since he couldn't pass us we were stuck like that until we passed the park. Dude seriously almost caused us to crash our freaking car with how ridiculously dangerous he was driving. He passed us eventually and about 5 minutes later we saw him pulled over by a cop. There's a video of some douchebag in a truck harassing some lady on a highway. She's filming him as he very aggressively pulls up beside her and flips her off before purposely cutting her off. But when he slams on the gas to get out in front of her, he loses control of his truck and immediately wrecks it while the lady continues to film. God, that felt good. Someone post it. I'm on mobile. Non-commissioned in the Royal Navy. A few years back had a lazy officer, pilot, doing my report for the year. He never filed it and my promotion went back at least a year. Later heard he got promoted to lieutenant commander. Turns out he was faking his medical documents so he could keep flying as he was no longer medically fit. Discharged from the Navy. No pension and a criminal record. If he was honest he would have got a medical discharge and medical pension. I was promoted in the end, but it took longer than it should have. When I was 18 and stupid, I met this guy through a mutual friend. Originally he was just my pot dealer, but we started hanging out. Eventually became friends with benefits, which was fine with me until all of a sudden those benefits started including stealing my money, making me fund his weed purchases so he could sell, being his personal chauffeur. and being his shoulder to cry on when he had issues with his girlfriend, whom I didn't know about. He got super manipulative and it got to the point where he was waking me up at 3 AM for his random favors. Finally around October of that year I had this weird feeling that I shouldn't be around someone so manipulative anymore and I cut him off. He ended up harassing me on Facebook trying to make me feel guilty for not helping him anymore. In January I was watching the news and saw that he got shot on his front porch. Supposedly he owed somebody money for drugs. He lived. But man, there was nothing more satisfying than seeing that news broadcast. To this day I feel like a sick frick for enjoying it. He lived. Laugh it up, I say. Nothing sick about enjoying a comeuppance when the man can recover from it. This was years back in high school, but I remember this football jock who was your typical ashat to everyone just because he was stronger, cooler and all that jazz. Also did drugs which he thought made him cool. Him and I didn't get along well even though we were on the same team cause he loved bullying people and I'd tell him to frick off. Anyways, it was his dream to join the army and become a ranger out of high school. On grad night our school went to Disneyland and he never showed up for graduation. I found out later that he tried sneaking drugs into Disneyland on grad night and since he had turned 18 recently, they booked him as an adult. Can't exactly become a ranger with a record of dealing hard drugs to minors. Felt like that was payback for all the bullying and nonsense he pulled for years. I read this story here a while ago. This guy's wife left him and their young daughter for some guy she had met over the internet after several affairs but hadn't actually divorced him. A year later she came back and apparently thought she could just waltz back into their lives like she had never left. By the time that happened, he was finalizing their divorce and he had full custody over everything. She wasn't even allowed to see her daughter. Now, or when I read this a couple months ago, she lives alone, has a daughter that wants nothing to do with her and is in debt. To the guy who originally posted this, sorry for stealing your story. I remember this guy was thinking yeah frick that see. It was a great story. Two of my friends got involved in a love triangle. One fricked the other's wife, then told him about it because that's what a real friend would do. After a few random incidents butthole decides he wants the wife as his new girl. Calls the other friend and tells him he's coming to kill him and take his wife. Highly drunk BTW. To which he was told if you come here I am gonna cram 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 gonna cram. I don't like the sound of your friends. I was at the beach and this lady was sunbathing in front of me with one of those aluminum tanning sheets. She had her leftover food in a styrofoam container wrapped in a plastic bag and a couple of seagulls were beginning to grab at it. About 6 or 7 were sort of pecking at it and I got up to shoo them away. More had congregated and I tapped her shoulder to let her know what was up. She looked at me, rolled her eyes, and literally waved her hand, dismissing me, and laid back down. The 6 or 7 seagulls had doubled, and I once again got up, shooed them away, and alerted her to the upcoming disaster. She once again rolled her eyes, and was clearly not to be bothered by a concerned beachgoer. At this point I was mildly hallucinating at the edible I had eaten early and said, "Foo-woo-woo-uck-it," and watched about 50 seagulls slaughter her leftovers. She got up in a frenzy. Birds and food everywhere. Never have I ever laughed and pointed so hard at a person in my life. It was uncontrollable. Tears were streaming down my face as she got up, terrified and shocked at what had just happened. It was so satisfying. I don't think I've laughed harder at anyone else's expense since. Just thinking about it now brings back wonderful feelings. The company I worked for got bought out and one of our executives basically sold many of us out with demotions, firings, etc. It was bad enough it was happening, but this guy just wouldn't be honest and candid with us during the process. At some point people got wise to the situation and there were mass resignations. The executive that had sold us all out got fired one day due to his inability to retain the team and left the building with tears in his eyes. In high school, I had chronic migraines and was also diagnosed with PTSD. I was going through a rough time in my life. Had to try several medicine combinations to get the migraines down enough to eat and go to the restroom without horrible head pain. When I didn't have migraines I would go to school. This guy found out previously that I reacted badly to cologne strong scents. Every day I was in a class with him, he would spray cologne, resulting in me getting a migraine and having to leave. He had no remorse over my many spilt tears and pain. I missed most of my days in high school and flunked. I moved across the states and finally started feeling better. Got a get. He ended up drunk driving and dying. I think injuring a few passengers. I don't really feel bad. Posted this before but whatever. Had been go-karting with a colleague before. I won and he came second or third. I can't remember. It was all in good fun, but we were a competitive bunch and I'm sure his lower tier podium stung quite hard. Fast forward a few months and the guy was given a free go-karting session by a supplier. He'd invited everyone in the department. We're talking circa 30 people, except for me, and this was planned for months in advance. There was no conceivable way that he could have simply forgotten to invite me. He'd invited my closest colleagues and even staff who'd simply sat near the department. Come race day, the department director was excitedly asking everyone if they were looking forward to it. He was a huge motorsport fan. He approached me, too, but I explained that I wasn't allocated a space. He was shocked. He knew that I also really enjoyed racing, made a call and got my name put down. My colleague caught wind of it and cited how we'd have to have one person left behind to man the phones. The director waved his hands around and said it's fine if it's only for a couple hours. Just then, the phone rang. My colleague answered and it turned out to be a major issue with one of our systems. He was automatically roped into staying behind to deal with the issue and missed the race. I then went on to win. Colin, you absolutely had it coming. Wow, that is incredibly petty on his part. Back in high school, this douchebag on the football team would routinely run around campus and tackle random dudes after school while his buddies recorded it. One day, he had beef with my friend Brian, who was a big wrestling fan at the time. He went to charge Brian for a tackle, but Brian managed to reverse it into a DDT, pro wrestling move, and spiked the douchebag on his head. Unfortunately for him, his neck got injured from having his full body weight fall onto it, forcing him to sit out one of his team's most important games. My now ex-wife was cheating on me with a, then, very good friend of mine. His fiancée was my ex's best girlfriend at the time. She discovered some less than savory texts between my ex and my friend. Caught him leaving my house one evening when I was out of town with work. Everything was exposed and for whatever reason, I took some of the blame and tried to work things out with her. She wasn't having it. Said she was never happy and that we never should have gotten married in the first place over 4 years earlier. Fast forward a little bit, I moved out of the house, and I get a call from her sobbing over the phone saying she's just lost her job. Apparently she'd been bringing her new BF around to her job, which had her working at an all-girls Catholic school certain days during the week. The school didn't like the example she was setting for these impressionable young girls, and they called in a complaint about her. Pile this on top of her overall crappy performance at work, and she got fired on the spot. Justice. But wait, there's more. She couldn't afford the mortgage payment, and stopped making payments altogether. They had to short sale her house for about 25% of what she still owed. Credits fricked for years. She moves back in with her parents, and brings the dude with her. Within a year, she's pregnant, and although we aren't friends on social media anymore, I do still keep in touch with her father. He was more of a friend to me than a Phil, and that's what hurt the most. I've seen some photos of her baby that my ex Phil has posted, and I'll have to say, that is the ugliest baby I've ever laid eyes on. I might be biased, but I've also confirmed with others that this baby is hideous. Calm as a bee, and I'm now with the most perfect girl I've ever met, and we've been going strong for almost 3 years now. Frick you, Rachel. Knew a guy, well, more knew of him, who, upon learning that he impregnated his very sweet long-term girlfriend, moved across the country without telling her. A week in his new city and he gets in a bad car accident and is now a quadriplegic. Oh man. Nothing would be worse than having to take care of a helpless individual for an undetermined amount of time. KAKAKA Comabit. I had a boss who could be a total blowhard butthole. He could also be really cool. Well, I have never worked with someone who was so antagonistic towards his employer. He always stated that if his employer thought he was an butthole, they could fire him and he'd sue. This guy was known to go off on everyone and anyone around, including his boss, who put up with it. Well, one day he decides to mouth off to an up and coming young star in the organization. I quit the job for greener pastures, and about 1 year later, my old boss position is eliminated. Seems that the young star became my old boss and quietly got rid of him. My old boss was 5 years from retirement and was forced to retire early. He shat where he ate and paid a huge price for it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.